Hi, my name is Emma Tortolo, and I would like to tell you about 5 books about outcasts or misfits today. Now, I'm going to start by reading a quote that is on the bookmark I made for you guys. This is where you can find out a summary of the 5 books and also the name and the author and location in the library if you want to check them out. Here's the quotes. Everybody feels like an outcast because the world is so large and every fingerprint is so vastly different from one another. And yet we have these standards and beliefs and dogmatic systems of judgment and ranking in almost all the societies of the world. And that quote kind of sums up what it feels like to be inside the 5 books I'm going to tell you about today. And the quote's by an actor named Ezra Miller, who, as it happens, has played 2 of my favorite outcasts on screen. He played Kevin in a film called We Need to Talk About Kevin, which was based on the novel of the same name by Lionel Shriver. Absolutely amazing and terrifying. And then he also starred in The Perks of Being a Wallflower, which was based on the novel by Stephen Chbosky that I'm sure a lot of you know. Anyway, I'm not actually going to talk about either of those books today, but I just wanted to let you know that Ezra Miller, who said this about fingerprints, he's kind of an expert when it comes to being an outcast or a misfit, or at least playing one on screen. So the first book I am going to talk to you about today is called It's Kind of a Funny Story by Ned Vizzini. And it's about a 15-year-old boy named Craig Gilchrist who is desperate to be successful in life. He wants to go to the right high school, to get into the right college, to get to the right job. And when he does finally get into this exclusive New York City high school that will set him on the right path, although he's felt brilliant his whole life, he suddenly feels like he can't keep up with his peers and he feels like a complete outcast. And eventually this leads to him attempting to commit suicide, and suddenly he goes from being in this exclusive Manhattan private school to being in a mental hospital. And he initially feels as much of an outcast in the hospital as he did in his high school, but then he starts to get to know some of his fellow patients, like a transsexual sex addict and a girl who cuts her face and scars herself with scissors because she was a victim of sexual abuse when she was younger. And getting to know these patients, he actually starts to feel like he fits in for the first time in a really long time. But can these people help him find his way back to his own life? You'll have to read It's Kind of a Funny Story by Ned Vizzini to find out. Now, the protagonist of the next book I'm going to tell you about, Speak by Laurie Halse Anderson, she also feels like a complete outcast at her high school, and she feels depressed and distraught. But it's not because of any pressure she's putting on herself. In fact, she was always more than happy to be just a regular kid, not particularly popular, not really a loser, just someone that no one really noticed. In fact, that's kind of what she aimed for, was just to not make a big fuss, to not be noticed. But then a few weeks before she starts high school, Melinda and her friends get invited somehow to this really cool party. There are senior guys there. And she starts talking to one of these senior guys, and he seems to like her, and she thinks, oh wow, like maybe high school's not going to be that bad after all. Maybe I'll even start high school with a boyfriend. But then something really, truly terrible happens to Melinda at the party, and she panics and calls the police, and then the police show up, and she can't find the words to explain what happened to her, and so she runs away. And then when high school starts, she discovers she's now being treated as an outcast because she's the girl who called the cops on the cool party. And because she still can't find the words to defend herself and explain what happened, she simply stops talking. Fortunately for us, though, we actually get to hear her voice because she's telling us her story. So I'd like to, and she's very funny, I'd like to read a quick excerpt from the book. This is The First 10 Lies They Will Tell You in High School, according to Melinda. 1. We are here to help you. 2. You will have enough time to get to your class before the bell rings. 3. The dress code will be enforced. 4. No smoking is allowed on school grounds. 5. Our football team will win the championship this year. 6. We expect more of you here. 7. Guidance counselors are always available to listen. 8. Your schedule was created with your needs in mind. 9. Your locker combination is private. And 10. These will be the years you will look back on fondly. Now, of course, the teen years aren't particularly fond for most of the protagonists in the book I'm talking about today. But you'll have to read Speak by Laurie Halse Anderson to find out if she's able to find a way to get that story out of her before it destroys her from the inside out. Now, Melinda could have used a friend like the protagonist of my next novel, Here, by Robin Epstein. And I should say Robin is actually a friend of mine. We went to school together. But that's not the only reason I'm telling you about the book today. It's really good. So Cassandra Black she's a self-anointed vigilante in her high school. She likes to break the law just a little to stand up for the people in high school that no one else does, like a girl who gets drunk and is sexually abused at a party and somebody captures it on their cell phone camera and nobody thinks it's a big deal because apparently the girl liked the guy. So you can see why Melinda from our last book would have appreciated someone like Cassandra to stand up for her, because Cassandra decides that it is a big deal that happens and she tries to make the guy pay for it, and she gets caught, which she's never been caught before. And after she gets caught, she's expelled from her school. And then when Columbia University finds out she was expelled, they revoke her admission to college. So suddenly she's left with she's an outcast at a high school. She's been sent away. She has nowhere to go to college. And she's backed into a corner, and her only choice is to go to this mysterious summer program at Henley University. And it's a program run by her even more mysterious uncle. And she's told that if she goes there, she might have a chance of going to Henley University in the fall. But she has to stay there. She's not allowed to leave. Otherwise, she has nowhere to go to college. And when she gets to Henley, what she finds out, this isn't just any old summer program. It's a program to study psychic abilities and ESP. And the reason Cassandra is there is because it turns out she has ESP and she's psychic too. And there might be a way that she can use these abilities to help people. But being a vigilante in high school and just relying on this sixth sense you have to not get caught is it's a little different than using your ESP to try and save people. When she was in high school, she was just dealing with guys who kind of had a hazy idea of the concept of consent. But now she's dealing with terrorists, people with guns and bombs, and it's all a little overwhelming. So you'll have to read Here to find out if she can trust the CIA, if she manages to do more help than harm, and if ESP is in fact the kind of gift that is better left unopened. Now, the protagonist of the fourth book I'm going to tell you about, his name is Jason Taylor, and he doesn't have any special gifts unless you count being able to write decent poetry. But when you're a 13-year-old boy with a stammer, I think writing poetry is a little bit more of a dirty secret you don't want anyone to find out than it is a special gift. So this novel, it's set in the 80s in a small town in England. It takes course in the course of a year in 13-year-old Jason. There are 13 chapters, and each chapter is a month in his life. So actually, I guess that's a little bit more than a year. Anyway, Jason he's just trying to survive being 13, where Cassandra Black in Here, she was trying to survive terrorists and bombs and guns. He just wants to survive his 13th year, which means his first kiss, being bullied at school, gang initiation, his parents' divorce, this stammer that he refers to as the hangman because it feels like he's being choked when he tries to speak in class. Oh, and a couple of ghost sightings too. So maybe he's not your completely average 13-year-old, but maybe those ghost sightings are in his head. It's up to you to decide. Anyway, fortunately, he's a very, very funny narrator. So while 13 may be a year that feels like Lord of the Flies to Jason Taylor, it's actually a very entertaining year for us, the readers. The final book I'm going to introduce you to takes us from a small town in England in the 80s to the city of New Orleans in 2005 in America. And that's the year that Hurricane Katrina slammed into the Gulf Coast and flooded the city of New Orleans. Now, this is actually a non-fiction book, but not any old non-fiction account. It's, I'll show you some pictures. It's a graphic novel format, which makes it a particularly compelling account. And in this book, the city itself, New Orleans, and especially its poorest neighborhoods, they're who I'm thinking of as the outcasts. Now, how can a city be an outcast? I hear you ask. Do I hear you ask? They're a city is an outcast when the poorest people in that city, the people who didn't have the money or the resources to evacuate before the storm, they're stranded on their roofs, surrounded by polluted, deadly water, and nobody comes to help. It's when refugees from this city who are homeless now because the flood destroyed their houses, they try to escape over a bridge to the next town and they're sent back at gunpoint, treated like criminals. It's when somebody's arrested for stealing food to feed his family because their relief trucks never showed up. It's and while this was going on, the rest of the country was watching on TV, watching this happen live. It was like part of the country suddenly became plunged into third world territory and nobody knew what to do or how to help. And it was, you were kids when this happened. You were probably too young to watch it on the news and it might feel like history to you, but this book will take you into the city when it happened and make you realize what it feels like to be treated like an outcast by your own country. So there we have it. There are 5 outcasts. We have a boy who feels suicidal because he is afraid that he won't succeed in life. We have a girl who's lost her voice because of a terrible secret she doesn't know how to explain. We have a girl who sees too much and is terrified by her ability to see. We have a boy who can't speak, who feels like he's being strangled by a hangman when he tries to speak. And we have a city that wanted its country's help and it never showed up or showed up too late. So there we go. I'd like to close now by reading a quote that's on the other side of the bookmark that I made up for you guys. There is something inherently valuable about being a misfit. And that quote is by Daniel Radcliffe, who of course plays everyone's favorite misfit wizard, Harry Potter. So I hope you will check out these 5 books. They all star valuable misfits, and I hope you will not make these books feel like the outcasts in your library. Thank you.